Hey, what's up, creators? This is your old buddy John, and you have once again found the Sketch Magazine podcast. I am joined, as always, with publisher Bob Hickey, editor Bill Nichols, and tonight we are going to be talking about your con setup. How you doing tonight, guys?
Doing great, John. This is Bill.
Hey John, doing good. This is Bob.
All right, so setting up for the con. Con season is very nearly upon us.
Yes.
And as creators, you want to make your setup as visually interesting to the person walking by as you can, or they will quite literally keep on walking by. So, how did they do that? Anyone?
Bill, you want to take lead on this and I'll jump in?
Yeah. Uh, Usually when I go, uh, sometimes it's the I don't know. Sometimes it's the simpler the better because there's not so much visual noise, so to speak. But having eye-catching, whether it's logos, and I know a lot of companies or a lot of studios, so that for me helps identify where people I might be interested in talking to or friends that I'm looking for maybe um, either through comics or through the internet or whatever. I can see where they are, who they are, and sort of visually or mentally map out where I'm headed. Uh, but if I'm just going to say maybe down Artist Alley, and anymore Artist Alley seems to be maybe studios and smaller companies too, um, having something eye-catching, maybe a representative panel or a set of panels or the characters, something that shows me in a glance what you're about, not just who you are, but what you're about. And then on the table in front, maybe your merchandise and of course the people behind it. Uh, all those things go together, and that can all work to get your attention because if the people behind the counter, whether it's the artist or someone who's helping, if they are engaging as well, uh, being friendly, that sort of thing, or just not, because we've talked before about people are who are so absorbed maybe, uh, or shy, whatever, who don't want to talk to people that come by their table, uh, but have that can draw some people in, but more times than not, it would turn somebody off because they just think that the creator, whoever, is not acknowledging their presence. So why should they, in turn, look through their stuff, kind of thing? But uh, visually eye catching, is the first part. Uh, Having music is okay, or having a multimedia display, as long as it's not overbearing and blaring, because I will shy away from that. And we've been to things in times past where that was the case, and we happened to be set up, I think,
Yep.
at one time, one in Chicago, next to some blaring TVs,
Yes.
and that kind of sucked. But I mean, I looked at their stuff, and it was interesting. But as far as I regretted being that close to somebody like that. But we did get some spillover from that.
True.
So what about you, Bob?
Um, I got lots to talk about.
Hmm.
Remember, you have seconds to catch somebody. Seconds, because they're truly scanning. So Bill's correct. A logo that jumps out, something with iconic that will grab them. They got to be able to read it. But remember, your display is set up in layers. You have your table in the front. Anything you have on the front, you got to have stuff standing up. You can't leave it flat. If you leave it flat, they can't see that walking down the middle of the aisle. And that's what a lot of people do. They walk down, they don't want to commit to either side. They want to keep moving. So you've got to try to get them to commit. So you need to have stuff propped up. You need to have in top loaders or little acrylic sleeves with props on the back to set up your stuff so they can see the artwork. And then the second layer, of course, your display is you, and you want to be as professional as possible. Don't goof off, clown around, be you be yourself, but yet don't be unprofessional. be somebody they want to support by buying your product and promoting you and telling other people's about you. And then most of the time you can have a backdrop, whether it's these pop-up banners, which are great. I mean, shoot, you can get them for about $90 now. They're like 3 foot by 8 foot. Displays or whatever you're using, there's where you put your large images. Something artistically that's going to grab them. Either a piece of art and a saying or something, but something is going to grab them. They're going to go, oh, that's interesting. Wow. That's very important. So before you even worry about what's on that table, you got to make sure you can stop them. You got to get them stopped.
What's your feeling about the full, like 10-foot wall sort of thing?
If you can afford it, rock and roll. I mean, be careful. You can't put 50 comic book covers on that 10-foot wall because nobody can see them. It's too far back. If you put some large images up there, it's impressive. One, that you're willing to spend that kind of money to set up a display like that. It might be an extra stop. You just got to be realistic and get an imagery that will cause them to go, oh, wow, what is that? And walk over and check you out. I mean, I'm one of those that will walk down the center, scanning around until I see an image, and then I'll stop in. And odds are I'll support that creator by picking up an ash can, a button, or whatever. Usually I want something that's going to give me more character. So I'm looking for a comic or an ash can or a mini comic or something if I like the art style. But it's because something they had behind them or on their table standing up caught my eye. And with me premiering Claysway at C2E2, I've been thinking about the display there. Some type of pop-up banner, large image of Clay and Pan, a kid and a panda bear, the proper words, probably something off the site, sort of like a child raising his family with ADHD. Well, there I'm going to catch people who has ADHD or dyslexia, hopefully. A cool piece of artwork, large, the logo, very so those things I'm really incorporating. And then what we put on the table, we're going to have up where you can see, creating those layers. My biggest problem is I don't like sitting behind a table. I end up going out walking around too much. So I'll be drawing at C2E2 though. So as John found out in Atlanta, that makes me set.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe that'll keep you
Yeah.
stapled to your chair.
True.
So, well, what do you think about putting, say, merchandise on the wall, like potentially T-shirts or
Sure
something like that? Does that look good, or you think that makes it look a little too swap meet?
I think it depends totally upon the publisher and the creator. Do I see Skystorm doing that? No.
Yeah.
Do I see a creator for Skystorm who's pushing his property and promoting his artwork? Sure. So I think as a fan, you're sort of give and take a little bit. You expect certain things from publishers, and then you're willing to give on the creator end of it. So yeah, I don't see a problem. I really don't like when they take those 11x17 prints and stick them up everywhere. They're again too busy. Get one of those nice portfolios. Stand up 2 or 3 of your best ones. That's what Greg Horn does. But have the portfolio sitting out there with all of them. Greg also has a huge backdrop of a single image usually. And it's something to catch your eye. He understands layers in the setup. So.
Yeah, he sure understands eye catching.
Mm-hmm. Yes. As Bill loses his voice.
A little bit.
Let's talk about merchandise. It's different now than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I've got some friends who draw and sell sketch cards. John, you know them.
Right.
And I've known them for years, and they've been doing this. They do those, and they do animation cells and stuff like that, and they do decent at it. They do. Well, when I did Atlanta, I'm like, you know what? I have a ton of sketch cards. Actually, it was Mid Ohio Con, wasn't it? When I'd sit up there with Blue Line Mid Ohio Con, I says, I got a ton of sketch cards. Yeah, they're
Oh, yeah.
old, but let's set them out and see what we could do. Mid Ohio Con, I sold a ton of those sketch cards. Not sketch cards, trading cards. I'm sorry.
Right.
Trading cards. I was shocked because it's sort of like they're come full circle. But instead of trying to sell them in sets or whatever, you sell them $1 a piece, or six for $5, and people are just looking for a little piece of artwork that they like to get autographed. Now, lucky for me, I had some sketch cards or trading cards that had dinosaurs on them, so kids really liked those. But yeah, I was surprised. So we're going to do with the Claysway C2E2, we're going to do 6 trading cards, and be like $1 a piece or 6 for $5, and we're going to do 6 buttons, the same type of setup, and a couple prints, and then we're going to have our first collection, our first comic collection. Be like a 24-page collection of the strips that we've done so far available. And we'll see, we'll get back on the podcast afterwards, and I'll report back on how well that does. I haven't been to C2E2, so I don't know the crowd, but if I know Chicago, I know that crowd pretty well. It's a good mixed crowd between creators and families and stuff like that, so I think we might do pretty well if we have the right setup. So we'll be working hard on getting the right setup built, right imagery.
Well, that probably brings us down to the table level now. You mentioned having things standing up with the image on it, but what should the table layout look like, do you think?
Bill, don't you think a good table drop skirt or something like that helps?
Yeah, I think so. Again, that draws your attention to maybe who you are.
It doesn't really have to be printed either, does it? You can just use
No.
multiple colors, maybe.
Right.
I've seen them throw a black skirt and then crisscross at an angle like a yellow skirt, which sort of draws your eyes to it because they're layering the table even before they get to see the merchandise. Blue Line has those printed skirts we've had forever, but they know Blue Line's there when they get close, and I think that's cool. But yeah, I think you can do stuff with just different colors of skirting, drapes, sheets, or whatever you can find.
Right, you can be creative. Be creative on a budget, even if you want to look at it that way, because you are investing in the setup that you're doing, because you don't want to plunk your entire savings into maybe one show, and you're not sure how you're not sure you're going to recoup your money.
Right.
You don't want to shoot your whole bank wad right there. So yeah, I mean, you can be creative with that stuff, and like I've said before, I respect clever, and that can be clever if you work it right.
Yep.
And I being eye catching and engaging, that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
With some people, not everybody, but the elite, like us. Yeah.
Right. Actually, I saw something that I thought was potentially very clever. Well, I saw it done in a good and a bad way. We've all seen these shelves that you put together with their wire shelves, and you put them together with those circular T-shaped things.
Right.
They're kind of a college shelf sort of thing. I saw 2 different people put those up on their table and use those as shelving to go vertical on their table with some stuff. I saw somebody do it with, they had a lot of digest-sized books that they were selling. They're webcomic artists, and they had their digest-sized books. set up in that, which I thought looked really good. And then I saw someone who was selling prints do that also, but they had just prints sort of stacked in that, and I thought that looked kind of bad.
Right.
And then another person just had the pieces of one of those things, and they hung it up on a wall or something. And they sort of used S hooks or something like that to hang things off of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was that way was kind of okay. It looked a little junky, but I thought that was particularly clever to kind of use that dead space.
Right.
I even noticed at Heroes last year, someone had because Heroes has this thing about backdrops.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but someone had kind of an arc over the top of their table.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost had to, it was almost putting your head in a doorway or a window to interact with the creator. And part of that arc was shelving. And I thought that was particularly smart.
Cool. And we're done.
No, we're done. No.
No.
There's one other thing I was thinking of. We know some creators who have multiple merchandise on their table. And I was suggesting to them at one time to maybe vary it up, not putting all the comics in one area and say the buttons in one area and the t-shirts in one area. Right. You know, kind of make it comics, t-shirts, buttons, or something like that, you know, to kind of vary it up to get people flowing down the table.
Right.
What do you think about the flow of, you know, not just getting people to the table, but across the table?
No, I think that's a good thing, because that way, I guess it's a good thing if you have one property. So, you know, and so by varying it up and having stuff from multiple places, if somebody wants to see a comic, they're not stuck behind somebody else who's standing in front of the comics. They could reach over to the other area and check it out. So I like that very much. Biggest thing is making sure, like small buttons and stuff, you have to really watch them or they'll walk away.
Yeah.
So you need to put them in cases or put them where you can easily watch them and make sure they don't. But no, I like that. I like, you know, jazzing it up. I think the kind of merchandising that you can do now is very important. Of course, having a printed book or something, whether it's an ash can mini or a comic or graphic novel, is important, considering you're doing comic shows. But before we mentioned the trading cards, they're very affordable now. Check out BlueLinePro.com. They can set you up right now. They got some very affordable full color printing and trading cards. They can help you with posters too, and I think posters and print are cool, especially when you do an exclusive piece of artwork for that. Not so much of, oh, that's a cool panel, I'm going to rip that out and make a poster out of it. But when you've created a piece of artwork that's, you know, I'm going to print 100 lithos and, you know, you can sell them for $10 or something. I think that's cool. I think you can make some money. I've moved some different prints at different prices in the past and done really well with them. Shirts are cool if you can afford to do them. Even the one-color shirts with the right saying or the right imagery in it will do very well. People like T-shirts.
Yeah, I actually had a question on that one too. I've seen some people try to be, I don't know, I guess the word would be kitschy, and just put their logo on it and nothing else. You know, this being not one of the big guys. I mean, the big guys can get away with that, obviously.
Oh, I've done it. I've done it.
Do you think that's wise for a creator starting out?
I think it's crazy, but I've done it. Yeah, we all make those mistakes. I don't know if they're mistakes. It really depends. If you really want to move shirts, then no, it's not a smart move. You want to come up with, you know, different things or stuff to put on them to move shirts. If you just want to promote your book and a handful of people are interested in helping you promote that book, then yeah, that's cool. You know, go with it. Like you mentioned, and Darren and I, we all
Yeah.
agree. We need, like Clay's Way, we need to put a shirt with just that exclamation mark on it. And on the back, put a little, claysway.com or something.
Right.
That will sell because it's not saying Clay's Way, dyslexia, ADHD, or anything like that in your face. It's like, oh, that's cool imagery. All right, anybody can wear that. You can wear it. We can do the black on yellow, but then we can do a white on black. We can do a black on white. Same imagery, same information. What am I getting out of it? I'm getting the claysway.com on the back out of it. Um, and I'm getting my character's imagery that he wears on his shirt out there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be cool with that. Buttons, I had a hardest. I don't do buttons. I'm not a button guy. I've bought buttons just because usually I want to support whoever's doing them. I bought Laura Inez's buttons last fall just because she had them. They were cool, and they're here. I love your buttons, Laura. But so in doing the Clay's Way buttons, I've sort of lost. And I'm a theme. I'm thinking themes and connection and stuff. But in designing the trading cards and the buttons this week, Jackie drew this little headshot of Clay getting warmed up. And I'm like, I want that as a button. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, that's a political button. She goes, what do you mean? I said, it's a round political button with I'm not stupid, I have ADHD. And with his head in the middle with American flag behind it. And, we're going to do some statement buttons like that. And I'm not for sure if we're going to use the terminology stupid or dumb. Probably either one works. A 7 or 8 year old would use that terminology. They would say, I ain't stupid, I got dyslexia,
Yeah.
So that's what we want to put on the button.
Or maybe confused or something to be a little
See,
less.
I think the kids, I don't know.
Well, no, I agree. The
Back and
kids use
forth.
stupid. Yeah.
And I think I've seen some books that's written and used that terminology from the kids.
Yeah.
And I think the statement needs to and I think there's adults out there who don't get that these kids have problems. But anyway, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
That's a Clay's Way debate.
Right.
Anyway, but that kind of stuff I want to do with the buttons. One or two, nothing a lot, not big making political statements or anything like that, But the buttons was sort of tough, We could have just done buttons of Panda Bears and probably sold a whole bunch more.
Right.
Because nobody knows who Clay's is, And not nobody, but the handful of weekly readers. I appreciate you all. Please continue to spread the love and tell more people. Most people I see at a show do not know who Clay's Way is yet. And so doing a button with Clay, just a button of Clay's head, isn't going to really do a whole lot. But hopefully by putting a saying around that imagery or something, it's going to help sell that button. In turn, I got my character's imagery out there. So, got to be very, very creative with what you do. But, actually, I think my stuff, we're looking to set up at a dyslexia convention in April.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I think that's going to be where we really start spreading the word. And if the local one does well, then Jackie and I are going to try to do some traveling and hit some other states. But, yeah, there again, pick your conventions that fit you. Here, we're creating comics and buttons and stickers and stuff like that. A dyslexia convention is for educators and tutors and people in the field to teach these kids. I can sell them this stuff. They're looking for tools. They're looking for ways to support them. So look at conventions that my genres that fit your book. If you do steampunk comic, do steampunk conventions. Do NASCAR comic, try to set up at some NASCAR racing or car events. See how they do for you. So, but anyway, merchandise. Be careful. Don't go buy 500 t-shirts. Don't, if you're doing prints, it's probably better to do, 20 of 6 prints than do 100 of 1 print. You can always go back and print more. The only thing I would say buy volume of, because it's cheap, is the trading cards. I mean, you can get 1,000 full color trading cards really affordable right now. And if nothing else, they don't sell. They're great promo pieces to hand out to people. Make sure you have your website information and everything on it and back of them. So that's an important thing too. Most of your merchandise needs to have your website or some type of contact information on it. Very important. Maybe not slap you in the face, but it'd be
Just as long as it's there somewhere, you know.
yes.
It can even be at the hem,
Mm-hmm.
you know, towards
Sleeve?
the bottom. Or yeah, on the sleeve. I've seen some they're really subtle, but you know, they do catch your eye being right around the edge of the the bicep.
Mm-hmm. And that stands out. That's a place that somebody doesn't mind wearing something, but it's very noticeable. Nike and those companies, they figured that one out. That's why you'll see their logo stuff on the sleeves. But all right, Bill. Your last convention was Chicago, correct?
Yeah.
What kind of cool stuff did you see? How about the artist that is doing original artwork at the show? You saw some of the sketch card artists up there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Katie Cook, and I don't know who else was up there. There was a bunch of them up there.
Renee DeLiz and
Renee.
Ray Dillon.
Yep.
And yeah, there were some of our guys from the Afterburn Media.
Right.
Were doing some while they were there. That's fascinating. If there's a way to, I haven't seen this at a show, but I mean, there's probably some shows where it's almost like a presentation where people can, like an overhead projector.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool if I could see actually them drawing, what they were doing. But,
that would be tricky with lighting at a show, but that would be cool.
Well, you could put it on a TV screen,
Mm-hmm.
like a webcam kind of thing, and then you can record it while you're doing it, and then you can put it
on YouTube,
or on some other site like who knows, Sketch Magazine.
You could have it live on your own site.
Right. So there are creative ways just to do and capitalize on just the things that you do while you're there. And if somebody's working on original art or their pages, I've done when Jerry and Foley and I were doing a lot of shows together. We would ink pages as we would sit there and we would talk to people, and they were fascinated because of what we were doing. And even so maybe the kids wanted to look at the stuff on the table, but the parents were interested in what we were doing as art, and maybe their kid had some sort of aspirations of being an artist or doing comics or whatever. So that would sort of branch into that talk about encouragement or what they were doing, kind of thing. And so you had both ends of it. You had the kids that was just wanted to look at the stuff that you had, or the parents who were looking at the stuff you had and what they're probably maybe going to have to shell out a few bucks for, and the future.
Right.
And it could lead into conversations of, really did their kid really want to do that, and what were they doing now to sort of prepare for that thing? And I had a few conversations, the beginnings of Comics Mentor.
That's right.
So
I really do not suggest of creating a strip in crayon live at a show, though. You will get some really weird looks, won't you, John?
It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I did that. I had inked off and on all day, and then I got to the strip that I was going to do that Clay had drawn, so I did it in total crayon. I did it there at the show, and I had some really weird looks. People walking by thinking that was the art style. So yeah. But now I agree. I guess what I was reaching out was that the sketch card artists, what's a good way for them to set up their stuff? Of course, they're creating art there, so they got their lap boards and their markers, and they take up a lot of their table with supplies.
Right.
There's the old 9-pocket baseball card sleeves that they could put pre-drawn stuff in that they've done ahead of time. There's the top loaders that you could put them in, the single pieces. And I think we even got some top loaders that have easels on the back of them, which are really cool for trading cards. So there's different ways, for them to promote themselves as taking commissions and doing the drawings and everything. So
yeah, you had one that I was up in Blue Line a while back, and I saw one top loader for cards that is encased in a frame.
yes,
It's like a black frame, and you can put. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 cards into that, and it looked so nice having that, that frame around that. I thought it was really impressive, and I think that would really draw somebody in, especially if someone did like a triptych set, very much like what Eric Adams did for the last sketch card event.
Right.
They put that up there and put that into a frame. That would look so eye-catching that I think it would really draw attention to the table.
Right. Yeah, I think those you can get them in single, 3s, or 9s.
9s, wow.
Yeah, you can put 9, and it's a nice size frame, but they're cool. Yeah, those black framed out. They're actually made for baseball card collectors, but for sketch cards, they're wonderful. Those are cool, and yeah, we do have some of those because we bought them for the actual sketch card event. And we ended up buying extras and then moved them. So it is something we carry pretty often now. Those are cool, very cool. But yeah, there's ways to display your artwork for those who doing commissions live there at the show. Make sure you let them know you have a list. Be realistic about how many you can do. It's important. I know you're there to make money, make as much money as you can, but if you can only crank out 10 sketch cards a day, then you need to price them at a price that those 10 cards are going to make you the amount of money that you need to make for that day to be there to cover your expenses. Don't sell them for $5 a piece.
Right, exactly. I've seen a couple of creators that do it 2 ways. One, they either give themselves X amount of time, and they inform the person that this is going to be a 10-minute sketch card. So what I have at the 10-minute mark, that's the card. Or they will group them out by an hour. They'll give themselves an hour, and they will essentially build a schedule as the day goes on. Or they will have, when you have multiple people working the table, someone will be taking orders for the sketches while the artist is physically doing the sketches.
Right.
And then, it's usually planned out ahead of time that, okay, we stop at X number, it's a 8-hour con, and so we do 8 that day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, having those pre-drawn cards or having something available, because you have time before the show ever hits, that maybe you're watching TV or whatever, and you have time to sort of, load up in advance, and that sort of maybe can fill a little bit and help out. But also, those when you play Scrabble, those little tiles, the thing you set your tiles on. Somewhere I saw something set on something similar to that, but I don't advise ransacking your Scrabble game for those. But
nah.
But
you could probably find them at a hobby shop,
right?
Or like a Michaels or a something like that. Some place that has frames in China and stuff. I imagine you could find like little stands up like that. But yeah, those would be cool.
Right.
Or those.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I was in Staples earlier in the week, and the Lucite business card holders.
Yep.
I was looking at those, and I thought, hey, you could potentially set cards up in these.
Right.
Because they were selling them in their $2-3 section over there, and they're about that size. You know, a business card is about the length of a sketch card, give or take. So you could potentially set them up in that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Brad talking about original art or just things on the table. Brad Gorby used to do those, when he was working on Film Force and some other stuff. He would have little displays,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be on the back of artboard. It would be attached or affixed to that foam board stuff, and then he would have the stick-on stand-up things. And I used to have one once upon a time, and he would it was part of his display, but he would sell those things too.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. Plus, it's Brad Gorby too, but
Well, yeah.
but it was an interesting idea, and I did like that. So I mean, yeah, there were those stick-on. I think when we did Pre-Comic Book Day, my placard that said, Bill Nichols Sketch
Right.
Magazine or Inker or whatever it said has that stick-on thing on the back too. So
Well, yeah, I still have
That
that
was
around
handy.
here somewhere.
The easels.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I used to carry the paper easels myself, and then they would see mine at Blue Line, because I've always had a little art display of something at Blue Line, and they'd go, "You got these?" And I'd be pulling out my portfolio and handing them out, and finally Mike says, "I'm going to start carrying those at shows." And we sell several at the shows. They stick them on the back of top loaders or whatever,
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
about to
pretty
say
well.
we're selling the heck out of those in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they work pretty well. But yeah, I tell you something I had forgotten about Bill until you brought up Gorby, and I have one of his Film Force hand cutouts. It was on foam core.
Oh wow.
You stick it on he makes a copy,
Right.
and then he hand cuts out the figure. Of course, it's a female chick being Film Force, and
Right.
he would stand those up. And
Right, that's what I'm talking about. That's
hey,
what I'm
I
talking
think
about.
I need to do that for Clay's Way.
Yeah,
I got
that'd be cool.
a card that they're like standing back to back that would look really cool as a stand up like that as an eye
Yeah.
catch. There again, it's different. It's not perfectly squared like prints and cards. It would
Right.
be cut to their shape, so it's another thing to stop their eye and go, "What?"
Right.
And
That's
that's
a
what
good idea.
you gotta do.
Maybe
You
have a
gotta
couple of
stop 'em.
backups, and if you end up having to sell that, you could sell it and sign it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Or you have a card of that and you sell the card.
Right.
Right.
Something always cool, and I'm not into collecting paper dolls, but paper dolls are cool when people hand produce them. Somebody made this house, and I have it. Actually, it's packed away in my office still. His book was about a scary house. So he had this pop-up house. He had hand created these craft things, and he sold them as kits. Basically, they were flat, and you took them and you stood it up and twisted a little bit, and it was a house that he had made copies of and cut out, pieced together, and flattened. It was cool as heck. I think I might spend $8 or $10 for this thing, but it was cool. I'm like, I don't even know what your book is, but that is really cool. I gotta have one.
No, that's kind of ingenious. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
you don't see that anywhere else.
Right, and that was the cool thing about it. I've always said, and this is what I will do once we launch Skystorm, is statues catch people's eyes.
Right.
There again, it's not your norm. Everything's squared and perfectly shaped. Something that caught my eyes when Joey Q and Jimmy Palmiotti launched Event Comics, and their first book was Ash.
Mm-hmm.
Their premiere was in Chicago. Their booth, being who they were, when they launched Ash, they already had a full-size sculpt of Ash, fully painted and everything, along with the first issues of the book and the posters and all that stuff you normally did back then. What caught my eye was that freaking statue. It was like, holy crap! Here's a 3D representation of their main character of this book. So, and that's expensive to do unless you know somebody does sculpts, and if you can do some garage kit casting and make some money back from them and everything. It's hard to do, but still, it is cool to have something like that.
Yeah, I've even seen, not professionally done, but I've seen some creators do like super sculpty type sculpts of their characters.
Sure.
And even that, even it has that kind of homemade, you did it yourself look to it. But even that is really visually interesting.
Well, I've thought about doing what I would call a claymation sculpt of clay and pan together.
Nice.
So it sort of looks like the claymation feel to them, so I can get away being rough, considering I'm not a sculptor.
Right.
But yeah, it's still, I'd have to get them close enough to those figures so they look right. But I've thought about playing around with that in my spare time.
Yeah, that ton of spare time you have.
Yeah.
You would definitely have to call it a clay-made.
I clay dash.
That's why I giggled, because
I know.
Said that.
That was good. That's part of the PR.
Yep.
Actually, that's a very good thing. There you go. Clay and clay. Yeah.
Yeah, see?
Mm-hmm. Hey, I think we did a pretty good job on the convention schedule stuff, or table stuff.
Yep.
I'm sure anybody out there has more questions, send them our way. We've got over 20 years of doing these shows. Seen just about everything. Bill seems to remember more than I do. I had forgotten the Corby stuff.
You've been to so many shows. It's just all run together for you, whereas
together.
Mine is more sparse and more special in my mind. How's
like
that?
a long forgotten dream.
Well, it's what I remembered. Statues from Ash, a cool stand-up house. I remember things that were like odd, different. Whoa,
Right.
So that works.
Cool stuff. Yeah.
Cool stuff.
So, all right. Do we want to move into what's been going on?
We can do that.
Right, John. What's been going on over at the Sketch Blog?
All right, on the Sketch Blog, it's comic related. I tried to keep it a little more eclectic this time. I tried to do a little bit tutorial, a little bit interview. So the most recent one being using the pen tool, and apparently I can't spell because I forgot the gene using. But anyway, using the pen tool in Photoshop. Even though you wouldn't think so in this day and age, but there's still people who are computer phobic.
Oh, yeah.
And even artists who claim they will never use the electronic drawing media. But I think it's
which I love. Oh,
I'm fine with that.
That was the blue line side of me coming out. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I think even if you are a traditional pen and paper artist, and bless you if you are, especially if you buy at Blue Line, I think you still need to familiarize yourself with the technology that's available. So you don't have to be a master at it, you don't have to use it in your work, but you should at least know about it. And one of the most basic parts of Photoshop is utilizing the pen tool. So a short tutorial, 10 minutes tutorial on doing that. Then another thing I think is important for comic artists, especially today, is to think outside the box. Everybody and their grandmother has a comic book, but what can you do to make it different? So I came across this thing about a multimedia comic project where the artist is using comic panels and things of that nature to create a multimedia piece of artwork. And in terms of being eye-catching, something like that would draw someone to your table just because of the variety of it. Then beyond that, I've had tutorials and things by Doug Tenapel before. Mm-hmm. This time out, he's talking about his book called Flink, Flink. It's essentially a story about a boy and his Bigfoot. So check that out. It's actually pretty interesting, and he talks about his process in there as well. Moving on beyond that, we have a pen and ink tutorial, straight traditional pen and ink tutorial. So make sure you check that out. That's kind of where all our hearts lies, with the pen and ink. And then creating word and burst balloons. And this was actually pointed to me by comic book letter and CR partner and buddy Brant Fowler. Showed me this one. He does it professionally. He letters for several mainstream comics. So check those two out. They're pretty cool. I am still mystified by the whole lettering process myself. Then a video I thought was especially good, being not only an inker but an inker who maybe overuses blacks a little bit. There was a thing by Art Thibert. Sorry, Thibert, whatever. I'm sorry to butcher the name, but the video is really good, so check it out. Then beyond that, the artist that's doing Batman Inc. right now, and he's another person with a difficult name, Yannick Paquet, something like that. But he talks about not only penciling and inking, but he talks about mixing digital penciling with traditional inks, which I thought was kind of unusual. So that's a pretty cool video to check out. Beyond that, a coloring tutorial on Gen 13 art. I was a big fan of Gen 13 back in the day. And even though the art itself is sped up, the dialogue that goes over top of it is very informative, so check that out. And a little bit of slightly risque art, so if you are of a mild sensibility, you may want to skip that one. But it's still cute. And the most recent, or the last one after that, the last of my little run of Copic marker tutorials. This one is on hair design.
Cool.
And making ringlets. Which, if you don't have ringlets or you're not a female, you may not know what that is. But it's curly hair, essentially. So,
right.
So go check those out.
That gets us up to date?
That's up to date.
Awesome. Bill, what's going on over at the Boars and Comic Mentor?
Well, on Comics Mentor, I have probably talked way too much about Hurting My Back, which I did last week. I'm pulling a list up here. On the comic related forums, I think I mentioned last week that Fred Lang, or Lang Hennig is his full name. Fred Lang is his nom de guerre, so to speak. Won the Despicable Me DVD art contest. So
yes.
Check that out. That's pretty cool. And let's see. Here we go. Just a couple of posts. There's a Alpha Dog Studios is doing a called Best in Show contest. There's a link there. I have my Sparta Bay fan page on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Hurting My Back, which I fell on some ice, but I'm okay.
Ooh.
So.
Didn't break anything, right?
No, just bruised and wounded.
Good.
You know. So strained my back.
Right.
So, but other than being sore right now, everything's pretty much set to go.
Good.
What's going on with you, Bob?
Well, we have an art contest that we've got to get the page up on the site right next week. We're going to do an inking contest next.
Yes, over Andy Smith.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
Little
cool.
Andy.
So, hopefully in the next podcast we can announce where you can go download that page, or if you don't have an ability to print out on some inkable paper, maybe we'll have to come up with something. I don't know.
I know
we'll have to.
For some people, that will be a logistics thing.
So, it could be where I could print it out on some Strathmore, but if they want to pick up the shipping cost to them or something, a couple bucks, we could do something like that. And I could just go ahead and pre-print out so many, and they can ship them out Blue Line. So we'll work with it. We'll get that contest out.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll have to do the self-addressed stamped envelope thing or something.
Right. So, but yeah, cool. No, just working on Blue Line. We just wrapped up a wholesale store for retailers to buy stuff. Worked a little bit on the Skystorm site, not as much as I would have liked, considering my computer decided to show its age yesterday and go down for 6 hours.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it didn't fall on the ice, unlike Bill. It just decided to act real bad. So, basically blew the day trying to get it back up and running. And just working on Clay's Way, trying to, C2E2 is our big show, first show. We got a dyslexia show, hopefully in April after that. So we want to get our merchandise in place. And this conversations, I got a couple new ideas by doing some of the hand cut out stand-ups and stuff as eye catchers. So I might go back to the studio and try to play around with some of that. So just working on that. So John, how can they find you?
They can always find me at john@sketchmagazine.net, john@comicrelated.com, and if you are a creator that needs help, you can find me at john@sequentialsupport.com.
Way too many emails.
I know.
Bill, how can they find you?
Well, they can find me at Comics Mentor and write me at comicsmentor@gmail.com. They can also find me on the Comic Related community /message board /forum. Actually, somebody just popped up. He does a webcomic called Tales of the Checker Man, and he said, good to see you here. And he just started posting. So it's cool when people show up that you already know, and there's already cool people to know that are already there. So,
All right.
Go show up.
Yeah, get some cool boards going on.
Yeah.
They're great. You can catch me at BobH@BlueLinePro.com. You can catch all three of us at podcast@sketchmagazine.net. I believe Chuck got the Skystorm boards going on over at Comic Related. So I'm going to start making an effort to head out there and just post some tidbits and some artwork that I'm, pulling out and scanning. Start giving people a heads up on what I've been talking about on the website. So I might be hanging over at the Skystorm site a little bit more here in my spare time.
In your spare time. And
Yes.
if you're interested in looking for that Tales of the Checkered Man, a link to his site is on the Rapid Fire News of Comic Related right now. So
Awesome.
go check that out.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Take care.
All right, you too.